Council, we're going to go ahead and get started. Susan got behind a school bus. She'll be a few minutes late. And when we start, Chad's agreed to do pledge his last council meeting, and Peggy, her last council meeting, agreed to do prayer. If you'd please stand. We'll officially call the meeting to order. Council, have you received the copy of the November 17th minutes? If so, I move or would request a motion to approve or any changes.
So moved.
Moved. It's seconded by Peggy. Are there any discussions, changes? If not, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, passes 6-0. And I know Corey said he would not be here, but you would, and I heard you're a little under the weather, so we're glad you made it.
Penny, that's really exciting. That's a cool update, and it delights me to think that we might have somebody with a doctorate moving into Henry County. That's fun for me. Just a reminder to Kiki and Izzy, you could be, if you live on the north side of the county, you could be on campus in 17 minutes, so, or less if you speed.
Thank you, Penny, very much. Appreciate what you and the EDC does and continuing to grow. Thank you. Merry Christmas. I'll probably see Corey, so maybe I'll tell him in person. Any questions for Penny concerning Cobblestone, Make My Move, EDC, tourism? If not, Sheriff's Department, we have following transfers, which you should have a copy of, 2733, 2,733 from matron to jail meals, 23,267 from overtime to jail meals, 5,300 from deputy to oil and gas, which we'll see more of those moves today. Any questions? If not, entertain a motion. Okay, moved by Harold.
Second.
Second by, I think, Susan. Any discussion? If not, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Passes 7-0. Out of order here, looks like, Memorial Park's next. We have a park request to transfer $4,000 from general labor. Again, the gas and electric for upcoming utility bills. Do we have any questions? If not, make a motion, take a motion to move, to approve.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, was it Susan and Betsy? Thank you. Any discussion now? If not, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Passes 7-0. Next, we have another transfer request This one from the coroner's office, it's $272.37 from autopsy to disaster supplies. If no other additional information, I'd take a motion to move, to approve.
So moved.
Chad moved. Is here a second? Second, was that Kyle? Any discussion? Been moved and seconded, no discussion, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Passes 7-0. We have additional appropriations, which we historically have end of the year in December. This one's from the commissioners. This is $34,000 in group health and life insurance, $14,640 for contractual services, $2,200 for legal services, $6,000 for computer equipment, and once again, utilities, $33,850 for a total of $90,690. Do I have a motion to approve? Moved by Harold,
Second.
second by Kyle. Any discussion or questions? This is the largest. If not, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Passes 7-0. This is from Sheriff McCorkle. You should have this before you. It says the equipment fund, i.e. commissary, is used by the sheriff to pay for items not in the general fund budgets, such as legal fees, timekeeping, office supplies, medical, and insurance costs related to law enforcement and detention, or any other allowable expenditure of the sheriff's office. This letter is to approve those expenses to be paid from the equipment fund. Do I have a motion to approve? Do I have a second?
Second.
Moved by Peggy, seconded by Susan. Any questions, discussion? If not, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Passes 7-0. This is sick pay payouts from the Sheriff's Department. We have two. First one is for Sheriff Rick McCorkle, who will be retiring in, I won't ask the number of days, 16, 15, December 31st. And below the benefits as captain of the office of the Sheriff of Henry County, and as merit officer for 32 years. Thank you for your service those many years. Please freeze the benefits acquired prior to his service as Sheriff of Henry County. Those are listed as vacation hours, comp hours, specialty pay, sick time of $21,184, plus those others that are listed. If you have any questions, it says please contact Rebecca or Rick. Do I have a motion to approve those? Motion by Harold. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Chad. Any discussion? If not, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Passes 7-0. Thank you again for your outstanding service to Henry County. It's been a yes, as our pleasure working with you. We hope and pray we can have a similar, very positive relationship with the new sheriff and work side by side for the betterment of Henry County. But God bless you, and thank you, and Merry Christmas. We have another one from the sheriff's office. This one is for James Goodwin, 25-year veteran merit officer and a 6-year employee of the Henry County. He'll retire on December the 30th, one day before our sheriff. And below is the total amount due, which is listed as final salary, and the council paid sick pay for a total of $23,035.58. To have a motion to approve.
So moved.
Moved by Chad,
Second.
second by Susan. Any discussion? If not, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Passes 7-0. And again, congratulations and thank you to Officer James Goodwin on our behalf. Always greatly appreciated. This one may turn it over to Chad. We have two individuals who have expressed interest in being appointed to job classification after Chad for 2 years has been asking, pleading, encouraging. His last meeting, he has garnered success. Do you want to comment, Chad, or you have any other information other than what's been shared?
Just that I'm really thrilled somebody finally raised their hand, because we absolutely need the help on that committee. And, you know, I'm glad that we have not only an employee who has stepped forward, but also a citizen appointee who's willing to join the committee. So I truly appreciate their willingness.
Do you want to share now? I can tell you that David Fisher, I have personally knowledge of because he also serves on the Planning Commission. Do you want to say anything about Miranda Madison, her role?
Miranda serves in our recorder's office. You know, she's very well known in the community, you know, spouse of John Madison that many of us have known for years. So, you know, I'm really thrilled to see that she's joining us. I think it'll be a great addition. We still have another opening. Jenny, whoever else is over there that I can't see beyond Kenan.
Angela.
So, you know, Steve, anybody, Butch, we would love to have another person from the employee pool, because I think it's very important. This is a very important committee that decides, as you will hear later, on salaries, hiring positions, doing things that directly affect employees. So I would encourage everyone to try to talk to their department and see if anyone else is interested.
And the one opening needs to be an employee.
So we have an employee and a citizen still open.
Okay.
And then, of course, you'll have to fill my position and the rest of and then, of course, Commissioner Tarantino will be leaving as well. So the commissioners will have a new appointment to the
Okay.
board.
Okay. Well, we're inching in the right direction after your 2 years of encouraging, so thank you for doing that. You have information on David Fisher and Miranda Madison. Take a motion to approve those two to our Job Classification Committee.
So moved.
Moved by Chad,
Second.
second, I think, by Kyle. And any discussion above what we've already had? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Thank you. I'll thank David in about an hour and a half when we have our PC meeting. Thank Miranda, and greatly appreciate it. It is a very important committee. Appointment to the EIRPC. Received from Debbie a form, I think, from Jeff Plaster to appoint. And that does say on the appointment sheet by the council. Betsy is current, had been for a couple of years, Chad. Betsy took it in 2022. Interest?
I'd like to continue in that role.
Okay, anyone else?
I was just going to say that I knew Betsy was interested, and I think that's a good fit. And I already told her if she ever needs a backup, that worked fine when I did that last month, but I think it's great if she continues.
Okay, I would entertain a motion to that effect.
Motion to appoint Betsy as our EIRPC County Council representative.
Okay, been moved by
Second.
Susan, seconded by Chad. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
I'll abstain, but thank you.
Good move. Just proves you're the right choice. Passes 6 with 1 abstention. Thank you for your willingness to serve on that. We have a bill from ARA. I was under the impression the last 2 years it was a specific line item in the council budget that said EIRPC/ARA. I know there was some discussion. Apparently, going back through the minutes and recordings, we did not budget for ARA. It's open for discussion. We did do EIRPC, and we've already, I think, approved that portion, commissioners and council at the November meeting. Our portion of like 36%. No. Newcastle was 36 and we were the remainder based on population. Any information, comments? Druthers?
I guess my one question would be, and I don't want to put him on the hot seat, but has our current grant writer weighed in on the possible need to continue the ARA? I know, because that was kind of our first step, and now we've been blessed with having now a grant writer in the county. So I guess I would wonder if this would be a tool for them to use, or if this would be a repetitive purchase, if you will. So.
Well, our grant writer, Glenn, is here. Maybe he wants to come down and comment, or maybe he has not had an opportunity to interact with Victoria and Eric Fry from ARA. I did text council members and reminded them that if it had not been for ARA, we would have not been able to successfully administer the $250,000 for owner-occupied from the stellar $333,000. And because of the way that went successfully, I do not believe Okra would have awarded us with very little fanfare a second round of over $200,000 last year of Okra monies for a second round of owner-occupied rehab for area citizens. So there's 40 citizens of low to median income that had their homes weatherized, windows, ramps, roofs, plumbing, that would have not been able to afford it. And that's directly attributable to ARA's help and their ongoing knowledge and working with Okra for federal and state monies. So Glenn, he addressed it kind of to you. If you have any thoughts, you're welcome to come up. And I don't know if you've had a chance in your short tenure to even interact with ARA either in the past or your current position as our county grant writer.
Thank you. Well, there are, as you know, just a plethora of grant sources that are out there, be it federal or state or local grants that coming from the federal, state, local government, or, there are grants out there also with private foundations as well. And so with that being the case, it just makes for just a variety of opportunity out there in terms of what the needs are for the county versus the grants that are out there to help fulfill those needs, and that is providing that those particular projects meet the threshold requirements for those particular grants for their intended purpose. And with that being the case, there's a lot of thought that needs to go into that possibility as well. But I think in terms of whether or not you'd want to continue the services of ARA versus the possibility of something else, then I think that would more so be a conversation between the powers that be to look at that and see what services that you've gotten in times past, to see what projects there will be forthcoming that this position could certainly make application for and put together a competitive application for consideration. And so I think it's more so a situation whereby, again, I think the powers to be would have to sit down and just take a look at what's coming up, what's coming down the pipe versus what's been delivered, and discuss it fully to the point that you could come to some decisions as far as what's there to be had versus continuing the existing pattern or perhaps making a change moving forward.
Okay, other questions for Glenn? I do know right about the time the pandemic began that the park board at the time, I think it was Superintendent Harrison, had asked ARA to come in, and they were going to do a strategic long-term, 5-year strategic growth plan for them for $10,000. And they broke it down into $2,000 for this segment and $2,000 for analysis of infrastructure. And with $1 million they got, it seems like that might be a good thing for them to hire someone with that kind of experience to give them some direction, research, statistics, and experience in that field. But it is up to the council. But
I guess I will make a motion that we do continue with ARA based on the fact of the hundreds of thousands of dollars in help we've been able to provide the community for a very, very minor cost. And would say that, it's not my budget next year, but reclassification is what we would use for these kind of things as a possible avenue to fund it since it was not placed in the budget.
Because I used to work for East Central Planning and Development District, which is located in Newton, Mississippi, and with that particular planning and development district, I worked there for about 8 years, and it was 9 counties, 32 municipalities, and the district was set up specifically to help local units of government that didn't necessarily have that particular expertise on staff, that those 9 counties and 32 municipalities, when it came down to circumstances and situations, be it grant writing or other forms of technical assistance in terms of research and statistics and this kind of thing, that the planning and development district would be that arm for all of the other local units of government. And so again, I think having similar experience, again, for 8 years as in relation to what ARA delivers, I know deep and well that services go well beyond grant writing in terms of what a planning and development district offers. And so again, I think it's a situation whereby the powers to be would have to just kind of sit down and thumb through that and consider what's there to be had, again, in terms of what's been delivered and taking a look at motions as the county moves forward to see just what's in both hands to the point that you'd want to sit and make a decision as far as how you want to move forward. Yeah.
thank you, Glenn. Greatly appreciated. We have a motion that's been made by Chad to approve the $10,000. Most likely, almost certainly, would come out of the council's reclassification fund. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second by Betsy. Any other discussion? If not, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Passes 7-0. Thank you, Glenn. And we have an RDC appointment. I think Corey Murphy sent out this Monday to all council members except Council Member Malacote the following. It'll become apparent why he did not send it to Council Member Malacote as soon as I read it. Dear County Council, the EDC team works very closely with volunteer-appointed county RDC. We have many projects underway or in the planning stages. I am writing to recommend the reappointment of Scott Hayes and Chad Malacote. Mr. Hayes helped create the RDC in 1984 and continues to provide critical leadership to this day. He is part of the tradition of strong local leadership that provides Henry County a competitive advantage. Please see his letter of interest attached, which was attached to every council member except Mr. Malacote, who he recommends. Mr. Malacote has served on the RDC for 2 years. His business and real estate background, along with understanding of local government finance, are a nice addition to the commission. Thank you, Corey Murphy, with his titles. There was a 2-page resume and letter of interest from retired counselor Scott Hayes. Comments? Anyone else who is interested like to put their name for consideration?
I don't want to put my name in for consideration, but I do think that Chad has given me some feedback about his participation, and I'd like to see him continue with some of the things he's been working on there with housing. So I would support Corey's recommendation for the 2 appointments.
I concur with Susan, and I would only ask that Mr. Malacote stays in touch if he's going to be our appointee and keeps us updated on what the RDC's got going on.
That would be my plan. I mean, I'll just say that I really enjoyed the RDC. It's no secret that housing is something I've pushed well before I was even sitting on this body with the EDC and the RDC. And I'm finally happy to report we're finally starting to see some headway in that. We have a couple potential additions that are, 3, I think, total potential additions with dozens of homes, not counting the one in Knightstown that has started, so, which is phenomenal. Beyond that, I've also worked very diligently to kind of be a bridge between the 2 bodies and, worked hard to get the pass-through we did on the TIF. So we passed through some tax rate from the RDC, and, I continue to work with them, and, because we all know, and I'll still admit that TIF funding and things like that are very foreign to any of us. It's very difficult to understand that. Same as it works with tax abatements and the rest of them. So, it's a very difficult process. I was just telling Councilman-elect Shannon Tome over there that, it's a bit like navigating a maze. And it will continue to be, but that would be my thought, is no differently than Penny and Corey provide an EDC update. I would give you a brief update as how's the RDC is going. It meets sporadically. Sometimes we meet twice, sometimes multiple times a month, sometimes every other month. So it's kind of an as-needed basis, but I would reach out to the, hopefully, President Kennan on the council to reach out and, make sure I'm on the agenda when we have a meeting.
Any other comments? If not, I'd entertain a motion, if there are no other persons interested. I would entertain a motion to basically follow Corey Murphy's recommendation for Scott Hayes and Chad Malacote to be on the RDC appointments.
So moved.
Moved by Betsy,
Second.
seconded by Susan. Any other discussion? If not, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Passes 7-0.
Staying 6-0.
6 and an abstention. Same kudos as to Betsy a while ago. Okay, next we have a job classification report. I know job classification met 2 o'clock prior to this meeting, and at 5, and it looks like we may maybe get out of here before the 5 o'clock planning commission meeting. I'm going to turn it over to Chad because I think there were 3 items on the agenda for job classification, and he currently, through today, chairs that committee.
So we did have 3 items on the agenda. I'll kind of go through and start with the treasurer's office because it will be a quick, as it was with our committee. Bill is losing his chief deputy, and which has happened in the recent past. And just like he did the last time, he is requesting that we allow a part-time employee to be hired on a temporary basis. He's estimating a 6 to 8 week time frame. The employee's rate of pay would be $15 an hour for $420 per week rate of pay. And that money would come out of his non-reverting fund. So it would not affect the county budget in whatsoever, passed the commission unanimously. And so I would go ahead and make the motion that we approve the treasurer's request, as we have in the past.
Been moved by Chad and seconded by Harold. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of that move from the treasurers as described by Chad, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Passes 7-0. Thank you, Chad. And number 2.
Number 2, we've got, the park came with a request. There is a newly updated job classification for the park superintendent. There is some, it's a very lengthy document, and it's different than many of our other job classification reports that we get from WISC. It basically boils down to if this, then that, as far as, you know, whether the current superintendent qualifies as a different class based on her experiences and education. Then it also, because of the House, there is some question as to the total compensation package. And so the committee has tabled it. My last official act as the chair, I spoke to our county attorney and along with Commissioner Plummer, and we went through the details that he will need to redo some, you know, looking into, but he felt pretty confident that, you know, since we do pay by class, what this document recommends is that that pay be reduced by the fair market value of the home, renting the home basically with, you know, utilities, cost of that, what that would be, and that would be her cash compensation.
How about the vehicle? Was that?
So she does not currently have a vehicle, according to her. There was some questioning discussion on that, and unfortunately, none of the park board were here to, you know, give any insight. I mean, I myself and others in that meeting had heard conflicting information into that. And then that opens up a whole nother door because there are multiple employees in this county that have a vehicle. And so what does that mean if we do start to looking at a vehicle as part of a compensation package? So I think that's a bigger box, and I don't know if I'd want to open it.
So that's the reason for tabling.
So we have tabled it because Joel needs to weigh in on the legalities of the reduction for the fair market value of the home. We've tabled it because the park board was not represented at all, and we received no documentation from the park board as to their request. The only one that was here was the superintendent herself. And so since she's really not a voting member of the body, it just wasn't appropriate to act upon anything without her being here. So we have recommended that she bring back the park board to a January, a new committee that will have some brand new people that have volunteered, new elected officials, and can start fresh with them in January and discuss, and then bring to this new council in January to come up with a solution.
Okay. I had down this year she was making $41,671. Just for my clarification, was that recommended before we had all this information, tentatively a $1,500 raise, or was it greater than that?
I think it was the 1,500.
Okay, which
I
would have taken.
believe that's the number that I saw. I think we held it in the salary ordinance that I saw from
I think so.
Debbie. I believe that number was held this year. The PAT 2 rate, I don't have the exact numbers. I gave them to Betsy because Debbie went and looked them up. It's roughly 44,000 and change. The PAT 3 rate is 47,000 and change. The median rate on the WISC report was 55,000 for a PAT 3, 49,000 for a PAT 2. But we all know that we pay almost all of our positions are less than median.
Correct. And so 1,500 with what she made this year would be 43,171. Right.
Her class did change, so that you will have to restructure it one way or another in the future. Her class has changed.
To Pat 3,
Pat 2, what was her current class, Debbie? Do you remember? I can't off the top of my head. Pat 2? Okay, so she went from a Pat 2 to Pat 3, but the Pat 3 had requirements as an education and experience. And if she did not meet that, then she, according to WISC, would only qualify as a Pat 2.
so a lot of nuances and if
There
ands and a
is.
house and a vehicle and yada, yada.
There's
So-
too many moving parts at this
Right.
point to make a decision, but it's something that we will have to address. The council will have to address, not we. I won't be here.
I have a question maybe for Joel. Do we always, when we hire people to meet a position, do they always have to meet the requirements of that position? Do we always send it back to have the job description rewritten? Just curious, because I assume we have job descriptions written that people have to have certain certifications. And then, so you don't know then, that's probably a different department heads. I mean, it's up to the department heads to make sure they meet the requirements of the job description.
Would that be kind of like the HR person when she came on, didn't have that certification or training or whatever education, and once did, was moved to a different classification? Would that be similar? But if education is a requirement of a Pat 3, it could be, and doesn't currently have it, and the recommendation was a Pat 2. If she were to get it, could be back to job classification to reconsider for a Pat 3. So do you make a motion, Chad, to table it? Do we need to do that?
The committee made a motion, so
Okay.
they didn't have any recommendations.
Okay.
So are we just letting her salary sit with no raise going into January? Or are
It
we going
seems
to
to
do the
me-
1,500?
Like, he said there's so many moving parts, and it sounds like Joel's going to get involved to a certain extent. And also sounds like the commissioners are going to have to make some decision with the park board and/or Joel relating to how much is going to be considered for the residents. And that's not been decided. We could,
It was a really interesting discussion during the meeting. The numbers Chad gave me, Pat 3 would be $44,855. That was Pat 2. Pat 3 would be $47,274. And Chad estimated that the house, the worth of the house with utilities would be approximately $1,200 a month, which is $14,400 a year. I think we should hit pause on this personally. I think we need a lot more information, and we didn't even have anybody from the park board here today, so I would be inclined to table this for now.
And just for clarification, where that 1,200 came from was the current HUD rate, the Section 8 rate that is approved, which I will tell you is on the low side.
it's on the low side.
That's on the low side, so
So even the 10,000 that Wes mentions, that's being.
that's extremely low.
Yeah. Thanks.
Curiosity and question, and I don't even need an answer, but when you're talking about a Pat 3 rate, I also understand as we've gone through this that you guys were showing all the department heads that range that comes from Wagner, Irwin, and Shealy, right? Within that Pat 3 range. So when you say that, Betsy, you said that the Pat 3 was what, 47?
Yeah, 47 to 174.
Okay. Just as an example, I have two individuals that are degreed. One of them has a license. That's about where they're at. And, just food for thought. Please make sure that I don't I want it all to be as equal as it can be because of that range. I mean, why are we using Wagner, Urban, and Shealy if we're not going to pay attention to that range? And I do understand that that HR position is an important position, and I wouldn't want it for what it pays, but it pays more than my 2 licensed people right now to full, and that's all I've got to say about that. So thank you much. Thank you for your service. Merry Christmas. Gonna miss you.
Thank you, Angela, and the work the Health Department does, and especially the last few years. Okay, I heard 2 members say table it, because there's more work to be done, I think, by the park board, our attorney, and commissioners. Not necessarily in that order.
So the last item on the agenda was the GIS position. I believe we have all received multiple letters and communications from that. Steve Russ appeared before this body last month to discuss it. He did come before the Job Classification Committee, discussed everything. Several things were discussed, but at the end, there was a motion that was voted on to approve a $65,000 salary for that position. And in doing so, we would have to create an SO position for that position. So that was the recommendation voted on by the body. It, from this council, then it's, up to this council to how we proceed from there.
And this is a 35-hour-a-week position.
Yes, that is correct. And currently, there is no one in that position. Steve has been trying for 4 months right out to fill that position without any success. So it is a vital position within the county.
If I can say something.
Go ahead.
Jeff, come up here a minute. This is, I'm sure everybody knows Jeff Lutz. This is our IT guy. This guy here keeps the county running. I think, and if anybody has any trouble, the first yelling goes to him because your computer goes out, their email goes out, or the judges go down, or 911 has trouble. I've had a lot of discussion with Jeff over this. He's been in my office 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times a week at least. He's running into problems with stuff of trying to get things solved. We're stacking up bad. Some things can wait, some things can't. Now, I know this is a big decision, but whatever way it goes, I'll accept it. But it's on my back to keep this county going with GIS with a lot of these elected officials, and some of them had to go to keep their departments going too. And if Jeff's got anything to say, I think this gentleman here has 40 years plus in business. He comes from the private sector. So he's looking from the outside in. We're looking from the inside out as government. So I think he's got the best look of what we've discussed, and it's like he says, everybody we've went through, he does hire with me when I get somebody in. It's 4 months. I've had 2 or 3 extra people call in. Bobby had one. Ain't even looking at it. The price is down.
What's the current price? What are we advertising it as? I don't recall.
40.
It's 47.
Yeah, 47.
For
something.
2023?
Yeah. Yep. So, and as I said before, we lost our last one, which Jeff knows how good this girl is, because even though this guy's got 40 years experience, and I think you'll agree, Jeff, he has to rely on that GIS to help him sometimes, because sometimes you can tell him that.
Well, I guess I just reiterate what he said. It's a specific skill set that I can't really fill that void. So I don't know if you guys have any questions specific about that, or I guess I'm here to back up Steve. Everything he said, I agree with 100%.
I think at this point, I mean, we talked about this at length during job classification. It needs to get done. I think it's not.
It is critical.
So, and the department heads have been great in letting us know that, and everybody seems to be on the same page here. The question is, how do we get it done? So that's what we should be considering.
I think maybe and then other council members will have questions and comments. I think it's no question whatsoever that it's tremendously, sorely, timely. We need it, and we need it yesterday. I think the question is the amount. 65,000, is that what I heard? is, for 35 hours is equivalent to 74,000 for a 40-hour position.
We do have 13,000 left over from this salary. 16, excuse me.
Right.
So you could take that, roll it over into next year. It's
Right,
already
for
been-
now.
For now.
But in
you'll have to-
perpetuity, I'm thinking long-term, Steve.
Yes, yeah.
So other comments? I know, Susan, you sent something out that I read what other pay was around. The problem is, we find it extremely difficult to compete with the private sector. And it's also hard to compete with Hamilton County and the donut counties with their huge assessed valuations, and their pay is incredible. I talked to somebody that works in Hamilton County, and I couldn't believe what they're paying compared to us, and it's unfortunate that there's that much discrepancy. But Susan, you had something you were sharing
Well,
earlier, with
I
your
have,
research.
I have a few things that I wanted to say. So I voted to make the highway assistant job an SO position, even though I wasn't convinced it was a good idea because it was kind of the same salary he got before with overtime. But it was concerning. And then I just heard us talk about the park board, and we're sending back her job description. We're going to reduce the amount of housing because we feel like we need to follow WISC. If I vote to make this GIS position a $65,000 position, I feel like we have just said, okay, from now on, we're just going to pay people what we have to pay them to get them here. And so I'm really torn about it. I don't mind paying him $65,000. I think it's a legit salary for a technical job. But what happens when we can't get an HR person? And what happens when we can't get a new chief deputy for Bill? And if it's just really concerning to me. You know, if I vote for this $65,000 job position, I'm probably going to vote to give the park superintendent the house, just because I would like to see the park board move forward amicably and do good work there, which I think they're trying to do, rather than draw this line in the sand and, you know, nitpick about it. Like, are we following WISC or are we not? It is just really concerning to me. So I wanted to say that. I did do some research. It did, when I just went online and looked at it, there are other job postings for under 50 for a GIS technician. I don't know if that's the same job or not.
You got to look at what they're specifying in, and I'll bet you they'll still be there.
Yeah.
That's yeah. She does the partials. Yeah, and there's. That's the only thing. I really don't think. How many, by show of hands, know exactly what the GIS does down to the T?
I don't know exactly what they do, no.
But that's what I'm saying.
Right.
If you look into it, that's why I've been asking and
No.
asking. You've got to understand this. Just what she said there is depth. Butch is ready to do some extra stuff, and he's going to have to wait on me. I just signed a contract with Snyder at $135 an hour, and I pray to God I don't have to start using it.
Yeah.
Because the price you're paying now for this job is a lot cheaper. I'll guarantee you, in the future, you'll pay more. I'll absolutely guarantee you.
I guess I'm just saying,
Yeah, I know.
I want to listen to the department heads because they know better, like you're saying. Everyone knows how critical it is. I've read all the letters, and I'm happy to honor that request and vote for it. But it is a very dangerous, it is just a very dangerous precedent. And eventually we're going to get a handful of people here making market wage, and our employees who've served for decades are not. And then what will we do?
Well, I think you have to look at it as a different case in the way that the qualifications it needs. You could take somebody like him, right there, 40 years, can't do it. He couldn't step into that, could you, Jeff? That's my way of looking at it, is running a business for 32 years. Everybody deserves it, and I've said it umpteen times. And every one of these people that stepped forward here and wrote these letters are concerned too. I've got a stack in the Planning Commission of papers that tall. I'd hate to pay Snyder to do them.
So if we send the job description to WISC, does it come back higher? Have we sent a new job description?
It'd have to be, I don't know. but you're going to be, these people that you're talking about at Indeed, and that's where I advertised, I got 2 people out of it. That was it.
You had a young man, as last month, was going to graduate in December, maybe?
Yes.
And what's the status? I know the pay is what's the detriment.
Yeah.
No one wants to go forward with the pay.
If I would go forward with 65,000, he'd be the first I'd probably go see. And Bobby had somebody that had called in and asked. It's right down their line. I had somebody from the U.S. government even send their application in, but she said, you're way low. And there's no way I'd take it for that.
Right.
So I'm just saying, that's what I'm getting back. I mean, you can decide what you want to do, but the county's going to suffer. One way or the other, I just hope everybody understands that. I think all the people that are here and using this county are going to have to understand it too, and they will. But it's going to be a slow process. When I start pushing this out to Snyder, when you can't walk into somebody over there in the office and tell them what you need and get it done, and he's got a problem that he can't solve because it's on the GIS end, and that involves him and the GIS, and they got to work together to get it done. I don't know how many times Bruce, our other GIS guy, would have to work with him to get, problems solved. So,
Okay, so I'm going to play devil's advocate just one more time, and then I'll probably be quiet. So I worked in IT for a long time. It is always better, easier, faster, more efficient, productive to have your IT person sitting down the hallway, always. But we don't pay for that as much in the U.S. anymore because it's so expensive. So it goes offshore, or it goes, is there any way we can get this service, even if it's not as good? Is there any way we can get it cheaper? Because that's why corporations do it all the time, because you can't always pay to have your IT person down the hallway.
well, my opinion of that is what your return, how fast are we going to get it? I send that man in and he needs something done immediately because that goes down. Okay, I'll put it on an email, send it to Snyder. I'm going to wait. When's you going to have it done? When I get it done. Are they going to put their stuff first? Are they going to they're doing it for other people? That was the big thing that the Snyder Corporation told me. He said, Steve, you're in the same boat we're in. We can't find nobody. So we're having people come to us and want to do it. So he says, if we can't find nobody, we're going to be as slow, if not slower. So what time limit are we going to put it on? I mean, we're out of control then. We're waiting on them. We're at their mercy. There we go.
Right.
Yeah. So that's another thing. I did sign that, and it's a $2,400, or how much is it? Yeah, $35 or $3,500 for 24 hours of usage to them. I can burn that up pretty quick with what we do.
So Snyder, as a stopgap, if needed, starting January, would be $135 an hour.
Yeah. 145 is what they went up to since we did that.
Well, okay. Council, there's no question that this is imperative. It just comes down to how much you wanted to pay, and your issue is open up a floodgate of 100 SO requests in 2023. I doubt if 100, but it's going to open up more. Again, 65,000 for a 40-hour, it would be 74,000 for a 40-hour person, is what it is. But
I guess my question, and I haven't heard anybody discuss it, is where do you get the $20,000+ to cover the salary, the perf, the taxes that will need to be come out? Because as it was discussed earlier, we used every single cent and then some to get to our budget we got to this year. We turned in a budget that was over. Barely, but right at balanced, but there was no excess funds like we had done in years past to draw from. So the only place you can draw from is your balance, and on top of that, like you said, you're opening this door. How many more of these will come in as a necessity? And then you've got the looming issues with the 2024 tax rates and
right.
the possible changes there. So that's the question. And everybody always looks to me as the numbers. I don't know. I honestly don't know where we find tens of thousands of dollars more to fund a position, and if we raised it, let's say we raised it at 65, if you look at the county book from AIC, that puts us way at the high end of everybody. I mean, I don't know how these other counties are filling these positions. Maybe it's people that have been there forever, and they're just comfortable, and they aren't looking to hire. So it's skewed, but when you compare us to other counties, we're kind of in line with that position at 47. So I don't know, that's my only question. And I know a lot of times I get looked to on the council, well, where do we find the money? I'm telling you, I don't know where we find the money without cutting into our current savings account,
Well,
basically.
And we use as a measure, I believe, 19% for fringe benefits on top of the 65,000, which we have to come up with money for that as well. Where do we find the money? Is what we budgeted for the 22 open positions. And if they're filled, we go in the hole greatly. But we haven't been filling them because we're not competitive with it. It's a catch-22.
It's going to be a
cycle.
catch-22 either way, because whether you do this or not, and I got to go to Snyder, we're going to be back.
Yeah, we're
So
going
you're going to have to find it one way or the other,
You're
or
gonna be
we're going to
back.
get rid of the GIS department completely. So that's the choice we have.
And I'm not in favor of doing away with it and forming it out at 135 an hour, because this person would be a lot less than that per hour. So, Chad, Betsy, you were on the job classification. Do you have any other thoughts? We need someone, and we need him, as I said yesterday.
Right, and I hear Susan's concerns, and I think that's all logical, and the points are well made. I guess I'm wondering if there's a compromise here where we raise the salary, but maybe not to 65. Like, maybe, if it's in the 55, 57 range, we might get more bites.
Doing numbers, 55 would be equivalent to what the assistant highway superintendent, which is 62.5 at 40 an hour. If that person were 40, that's 55,000. I don't know if that's high enough to get somebody or not, but I have issues with 65,000. But we need somebody, so that's the rub. We need to be more competitive, or we would have more people applying for this position. So we've got to go higher than 47, and probably considerably higher if we want someone locally.
So you've advertised for a full-time person. Have you actually advertised for a contractor yet online from anywhere in the country?
Contractor. That'd be like Snyder. It's the same thing.
There's
I mean,
other people that can do the work besides Snyder, other contractors. I mean,
That's
people,
about the only one. And the only reason I was using Snyder is because that's a part of our system. That's basically
Just
why we stick with
people
it.
do really complicated, talented development work for less than $150 an hour.
So we use them at tax time. We have to have that GIS person. When it's time to do tax bills, we have somebody in another country or Schneider, we're not going to get the work done. Then we don't get the tax bills sent out. But we use them at tax time. So for us to put this out to somebody else, it's just not even something you could think about. I mean,
that or we don't get our stuff back to get it out quick enough.
right. And then
you're
when
stuck.
you don't, tax bills don't go out on time, and then,
Well, we're in a worse mess than we are now.
Yeah, I mean, there's
That's
just
what
no
runs the
way we
county,
can
the
contract
revenues.
this out, and to say that we would contract it out to another country or to another state, we can't do that. We have to have this now. I mean, we have to have this at tax time and stuff.
I can answer this. Using that example, from my company standpoint, if you guys were to come to me and say, will you provide GIS services? I'm going to go hire a tailor for $75,000, pay her benefits. I want to make money because I'm a for-profit company, so I'm going to be charging you way more than what you're going to pay just paying this person.
Right. Well, I know Butch, for example, at the November meeting, he's waiting for very critical things with 911 as well, and I think it sounds like about 8 different departments are chomping at the bit, wondering, we've got to have somebody now. So my personal thought is just one member out of 7 is we need to address this. We need to address it today, and we need to pay him more, and we need somebody local. The only question, going back to what I said 20 minutes ago, is how much?
Yeah, I want to say something to your situation of raising issues with everybody. I know everybody in this whole county needs more money. We're all underpaid. I'm not talking about my salary. I'm talking about all the workers under me. I'm at a point I'm stressing my lady. I got one. she's doing this and having to stay up with all this and keep track of it because we don't want to lose anything. You know, she's ready to walk out. I'll just be truthful with you. Had her in tears the other day because all this stuff's coming in. She can't do her work. She's piling up everything. Nobody to back her up. I'm out. I got to go do my stuff. So if you got in the working world of a business owner like he's been and I've been, if you've got good reason, I had to do 83 watersheds in this county when I walked in 13. I had to stand tall, and I had to say to these people in the county, you're going to pay more taxes for drainage. Do you know how hard that was? That was the toughest job I ever did in 32 years. But if you got a good reason why you're doing it, and you got the backing behind you to prove it, every one of them walked out and said, I may not agree with you, but I see what you're doing. That's how I had to do it. And then you're thinking, if everybody comes in and starts asking, we can only pay so much, you're right, until we find either more taxes or do something. But it's you that's got to convince the people why we do it, why we're paying this job, and stand behind it. If I was in your position, that's what I would do. I'm going to have to talk to these people too. I'm sure they don't like me standing here asking for more money. But I got to do it. It's either that or somebody's got to do it. And if somebody wants to take it, and see what you can do with it. But I agree. We go overseas. I don't want to do that. That's the worst thing we could do.
Okay.
Yeah. We're down to the point. We got a point who's going to start walking out. I want to keep them. I want to make them feel like they're somebody and make them feel like they're wanted in their departments. That's why we're standing here, and that's why I've got the backing, and everybody else wrote these letters, is just not here to bully you, it's to give you the facts. Most of these are facts. They're not to push, shove, try to get you convincing of that. It's needed.
Appreciate it.
And, yeah, that's all I'm saying.
And I think we agree, and we've heard. How much is the pay now? 47 what?
Pat 3 is 47,274.
What if we up that 10,000 and see what happens? Does it have to be a 35-hour? Because we could, if it were a 40-hour, and I don't know if that's even possible. I'm just asking.
Yeah.
Just like Susan is asking, we're brainstorming, because this is going to start a precedent above and beyond the highway department, above and beyond. We are going to get 10 or 12 SO requests. I understand that. And we're going to be individual doing this at every meeting next year. So looking at the big picture, we've got to pay more. There's no question about that. It's how much. I'm open to a suggestion. I think 65 is high because I think we're competing with the private sector, which we will never be able to do with what the legislature gives us and the revenues and our assessed valuation. But we've got to fill this, and we've got to fill it. I hope we can fill it with a decision made today.
I would
And
say
it's a very difficult situation because here's the bottom line. The lady who just stepped to the podium before Steve makes way less than that. And she just drug us through a global pandemic, is a licensed nurse with decades of experience. And her compensation package is way less than that. So, I mean, it's difficult. I mean, I hate to be in a position, I have no idea what to do. And that is exactly where I am, because when I look at someone like that, and then I turn around and wanting to hire a kid right out of college with no experience making $65,000, which is nearly $20,000 more than the lady who just brought us through a global pandemic and kept this county in check and has decades of experience as a medical professional. It's tough. I mean, I agree with you, Ken, and I think 65 sounds high. But I don't know from what Steve says, using what the person who just left him, that's not even, I doubt that would even entice them to stay.
No.
Because my quick math, she made more than $75,000 to move to that position. So it's...
Well, we'll never be able to compete with the private sector.
We won't.
The government does not give us that ability to do that. Yes, we may be considering raising taxes, but that's still not going to solve the problems we've been, it might help, but it's not going to solve all the problems we talked about.
I think you're going to be pushing 60,000 at the low on this. That's just my opinion. To tantalize somebody. I think, Bobby, what was the last one you had a call on? The lady that called in?
Yeah, she called and asked me, she was from, I think she had like 20 years experience, Ball State-ish. I think she said Ball State. She asked me what it made, and I said, don't quote me on this, but I think 47,000. She goes, no, thank you.
And there wasn't no discussion on it. And
She ended the conversation. She was polite, but she ended the conversation and said, no, thank you, I can't do that.
right,
And I imagine that's the norm.
yeah.
A couple things I think we need to consider. I mean, this is a very skilled position. It's unique in that, and it relates to so many different departments. And I also recall, I believe it was Jody Brown that said, we're okay, we know we're going to be making less than this person if you guys raise the salary, and we're good with that. Am I recalling that correctly? So, Chad, I understand the sentiment. We are drastically underpaying a lot of our employees, and we can't, it is what it is, but we need to fill this spot.
So this, I mean, just again, if it's a skilled position, it should show up on Wagner, Irwin, and Shields, or the data is meaningless to me.
Well, we talked about that last month, and someone said, kind of nixed the idea of moving this past Wagner or Shelley. And right now, we would have had that in the report if that had been suggested and approved, but we don't. It'd be another month. I'm hearing that we need this filled quicker than ASAP. So I would hope we can come between the 57, 270, and 60 in that range and make a decision here in the next few. We have raised that about $4,000 in the last 2 years, but realize it's still not anywhere close to competitive as other positions that we have here. That's my say, but I'm not going to make a motion because I don't feel that's my position to.
I've heard everybody basically in the audience say that we need this, and I haven't heard anybody say they oppose the number 65. Anything that involves technology, specialized skill sets, it's going to demand more money. I feel like if our county CEO, or CFO, excuse me, is essentially saying we got to get this done, and then we have the support from so many other department heads, as far as the requests over and over for jobs to be reclassified as SOs, I think that with the support of the department heads stating, hey, look, that's just not going to happen. This is a different sort of an event than just people wanting to get paid more. So I think we just move forward with what so many of our department heads have recommended, what the Job Classification Board has recommended, and I just move to approve the 65 and get this done.
Is that a motion?
It is.
Okay. It's been moved to approve 65,000 as was recommended by the job classification earlier today. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any other discussion? If not, all in favor of offering 65,000 in 2023 to GIS, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nay. 3. Passes 4-3. You can. I was a no. Chad was a no. And I heard another no. Was that you? Susan. So they were all yays except for Chad, Susan, and me. Okay? It passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank everyone who wrote us and shared the information. Move forward at 65,000. Okay. Next we have,
Hey, Chad, Kenan, can we do one other salary ordinance before we move off of that?
yes, what is that?
So I need to check this with Joel, but the commissioners approved a salary of $89,878 for Kathy Eke in her new contract. And so that contract is done, and I wanted to make a motion that we approve a new salary ordinance for Kathy Eke of $89,878 to be effective in January.
Okay, was that,
I couldn't hear her.
she doesn't have anything in writing. Is that a two-year contract by the commissioners? And it was set at that, or was that board, the Public Defenders Board?
All we approved, we've done, her contract has not come up. All we approved was to allow, when the council gives a 3% raise, she can be included in that. We have not approved any contract of hers that has come up yet. All we approved was
You left
if
it
the
that we could do
council
it.
approves a 3% raise, she can be included in that 3% raise as a part of her contract, whatever her contract may be at the time. But we have not yet approved a contract for her. Her contract has not come up for reapproval yet.
It should be this month.
We haven't received anything. They have not given us anything.
Who's they? The Public Defender
Public
Board,
Defender's
Kathy's
Office.
office, or?
Yeah, isn't that right, Joel? All we looked at, and when I had you review it, it was just the memorandum that just allowed the council to do the changes. So I don't know, Susan, if you're wanting to do a salary ordinance to include the 3% that you guys just approved for everybody else,
Right,
Well,
so,
it wasn't 3% across the
or
board.
whatever that was.
It probably
Yeah.
averaged 3%, but.
so
whatever
I
it
know
was.
that, what Chad and I talked about roughly and what her request was basically on target for what we had given because she didn't get her raise last year. And so who would make the salary ordinance?
But it has to go through the auditor's office first, all right?
Okay.
Yeah, it
Can
has to go through
we-
the auditor's
Can we
office.
vote kind of to have her do that and have it ready for January, or is it too late to do that now? Okay.
I'm
With this, sorry, Kyle.
I'm confused. She said on the 17th of November, they signed the contract and returned it to me already, somewhere in the neighborhood of 89,878. Because her board had to recommend.
So did that number, so did that number that she thought, did that come from the Public Defender Board based on a roughly 3%?
Yeah, I think it was like 86 and change or something prior in the prior contract.
Okay.
So I just asked her what her salary request for in the new contract was, and she said, I think it was 89,878.
Can we make something contingent upon, this has been delayed 3 months, so that she would get the same raise, or do we need a work session in early January? But waiting until January, the whatever, 28 seems.
I know she didn't get a raise last year, and I just wanted to have it ready for her in January.
She was the only person we're aware of that did not get a raise last year because she had a 2-year contract that was set for a 2-year amount, and she was the only one that didn't get the roughly 3.5% last year. Right. We didn't, because we didn't have any information at the time to base it on. Okay. You just tell us the process and we'll follow it. Okay, that's fine. Just advise us what we need. What can we do tonight? Anything? Today?
Yeah, so is there any way we can do it so it's ready in January, or is it a no? Yeah, I wasn't trying to blame anybody. I was just asking the question, is there any way to make it happen, retroactively?
If the commissioners approve the 3% in line. This number that she gave me was definitely in line with the 3%. I think that should open the door, shouldn't it? If they've approved that, if that's all that their contract was required commissioner's approval on the number.
Well, he just read a number. Susan just read a number.
Right.
Okay.
I don't know that Bobby said they made it so that we could give her a raise. I don't know legal terms for that.
Correct. That's the way I understand it too. I do know that Bobby and I recently spoke and had the conversation, bounced the idea around about trying to bring that contract at some point with the termination or reapproval date in line with when we're doing the appropriations and salaries for the next year, just so that we don't run into this issue again.
So advise us, what can we and cannot do tonight, if anything?
Well, I think you make a motion to go forward with setting her salary at the earliest possible date. We try to determine when that's going to be at that figure. And, you know, the earliest possible date may end up being your regular meeting in January.
January 28th? Okay.
Okay.
So somebody make a motion of what Joel said based on the
So I make a
80-some-odd
motion.
thousand.
Make a motion that we set Kathy Eakey's salary at $89,878 at the earliest possible date.
I'll second.
Okay. Somebody's about to second. Was that Chad? Okay, it's been moved by Susan, seconded by Chad. Any further discussion? You got the amount down, Bobby? Any other discussion? Okay. Anything else we need, like retroactive to January 1, or is that?
That's it. I mean, we'll look at what other process needs to happen.
Okay, and you'll advise us legally and according to Indiana Code and State Board of Accounts. Any other discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Passes 7-0. Thank you. Anything else before we, yes, Harold. Harold's got the floor. Might use your microphone.
Thanks, Chad. I have a question. Perhaps this is just taken for granted, but for our January meeting, will we be going back to the fourth Thursday? And then I need the time. That way
Yes.
all of us will know we're here at the same time.
Right, and that's next on the itinerary.
Oh.
So thank you for the
I did
preview of
not-
coming attractions.
I saw that.
Yes. I had a meeting with Mike Regner and Shannon Tome during the Christmas walk time. They both worked during the day, and I shared with the council that the earliest convenient time for them would be at 4 p.m. I kind of ran that by the council, and no one seemed to say that's not going to work. So open that up for discussion for those of you who will be still here.
As someone who also has a day job, I would support that. I mean, honestly, the later the better for me, but 4 p.m. seems like a good compromise. Department heads will still be around. That works.
It would still be convenient for department chairs. That's one reason we moved it from 6 to 3:30. And so we're talking 4. Anyone opposed to that or cannot work that out? No? Okay. Do I need to make a motion? Or can we just decide to?
I'll make the motion to move our meetings to the fourth, or continue fourth Thursday of every month at 4 p.m.
Okay, we didn't really, go ahead. Is there a second? Second. Now, discussion, is the fourth Thursday still okay with the possible exception of November and December? In which case, next year, we could be looking at the week after Thanksgiving is the 30th, very unusual, which would be the actual fifth fifth Thursday, and Christmas could be December 28th, which would be 3 days after Christmas, but all the others would be fourth Thursday, except November. And is everyone okay during this discussion time with fourth Thursday, with the possible exception of November and December? I got shaking heads. Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we meet at 4 o'clock on the fourth Thursday of each month, with the exception of November and December. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed?
I will as well.
Do I get a thumbs up from the new guys coming on? All right. Well, we have, all in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Opposed? So it's 5-0, yeah, with 2 abstentions. 5-1-1. Okay, so we're going to meet on the fourth Thursday, but at 4 p.m., which is still conducive for department heads, which we appreciate department heads coming. We've had the sheriff here, we've had Jenny here a lot, we've had Butch here quite a bit. I'm sorry that before we can make some more kudos to Linda, and I did earlier to Rick, appreciation for their service. We're going to be missing Chad and Peggy. We appreciate your 4 years of valuable service to the council and the citizens of Henry County. I know Chad and Peggy. Chad's been some have referred to him as our human calculator, Mr. Number Guy. And Peggy is our prayer warrior. We can always count on for being there and being supportive. I know both of them have served on our abatement committee faithfully the last few years. Each of them have served on 4 or 6 liaison positions with different departments. I'll mention Peggy's, and I think Susan's going to mention some things about Chad, but I think Peggy served on liaison for the clerk, voter registration, recorder. This past year, we had a substance abuse and mental health, and we appreciate it. We appreciate whenever we've asked for prayers, we knew that Peggy would be there as our prayer warrior. We do have some gifts, some food, a little reception, not much, but we do have some things here. So Susan's going to say a few things about Chad because she wanted to, and I said, please do. We've got some cards, too, we signed.
Thanks, Kenan. I wanted to, for both of them, Peggy, I really have always appreciated that you always give an honest answer, and we always know that it's not manipulated or you're never trying to please anybody. It's just an honest, conservative answer, and I really appreciate working with you. Thank you for that. And Chad, I wanted to thank you a lot. I've learned a lot from you. And when I first started, I kind of knew business finance, but I didn't know any government finance. And Chad has always been patient to explain anything to me that I didn't understand, and help me learn how to read the budget. And appreciate his fiscal conservativeness. And I think that our county is better off for both of them serving on the council. And I really appreciate them both very much, and I wish you both the very best.
Yes, thank you both. Next month, we'll be welcoming Shannon Tome and Mike Regner, who are in the audience. We look forward to working with them. They've gotten a preview of a little bit of what to expect. They've been at several meetings, so we look forward to that, and we wish you both thank you again, and Godspeed and Merry Christmas. Thank you for all you've done, both of you.
Are you going to wait on the liaison positions to January? It's getting late.
Well, I don't know. I was going to give Chad and Peggy get up to the podium and give their 10-minute speech, because we've got the time till the.
Sure.
No, I do have an 8-page speech here that I was preparing to read.
Well, you can start it, and I'll cut you off before 5 o'clock. We didn't have Corey here, so that helps with the time a little bit.
Yeah. No, I want to start out by thanking everyone who put the trust in me 4 years ago when I started this position. I really want to thank the county employees and county elected officials for their tireless efforts in keeping the business of the county moving forward. What a wild 4 years it has been. We have served through some of the most unusual times in recent history, combating a global pandemic and federal involvement in local county government unlike anything we've seen. All of us but one, Harold, are new in the last 4 years. When my colleagues and I started, the four of us, me, Peg, Kenan, and Susan, in 2018, we came into this position hundreds of thousands of dollars in the red on day one. But I'm happy to say today we have a 7-figure balance in our general fund, which is phenomenal. But not only have we accomplished to balance the budget, we have been able to accomplish so much more. We have a new correctional facility, something our predecessors failed to do for more than a decade. We were able to build the local economy with working through the EDC, Newcastle Main Street, to provide local business support during the COVID lockdown. And we were able to give county employees much needed incentives and increases almost every year. And here recently, we doled out millions of dollars in food and beverage monies to several local businesses, everything from small community food banks and help centers to the Hall of Fame. So, and on top of that, we have seen a steady growth in our job market in this county, which would not have been possible without the tax abatements, TIFs, and the revitalization approvals that we did as a council. I can't say enough about my colleagues. I will truly miss you all. It has been an extremely enjoyable 4 years. We've had our ups, our downs, our fights, our cries, but at the end of the day, I'm very proud to have served with you all. But I do want to specifically call out Kenan and Susan. We have worked together the most, the three of us, in many of the committees. We've collaborated on multiple projects, and I think we would all admit that on day one, we probably didn't know what to expect of each other. And we probably have I know I can certainly admit I have a unimaginable respect for both of you, and I truly am proud to call you my friends. Kenan, you have really done well in the big seat this year. You have poured yourself into that position. You have done unimaginable research, and the time you have put in, anyone that would ever even begin to call you a part-time elected official is out of their mind. You have worked, I can't tell you how many hours. I get these emails, I get those texts. I truly
apologize.
I truly appreciate everything that you've done, and I'm happy that you've served in that position this year. So I don't want to be like my buddy Corey, so I'll shut it down, but I will only say to Shannon and Mike, hang on. You will never have a job that is more difficult than this one. County, like Susan said, local county government financing is kind of like trying to meet an unbeatable maze. You will absolutely be lost the majority of the time. So, but I will just end in saying, I'm not changing my phone number. I'm not going anywhere. This is a very bittersweet day for me because while I am leaving for what I think is very good reasons and taking care of my family, it's also very difficult for me to step away because I really have tried to do my absolute best. And I am proud to say that I stand by everything I have done in this position in 4 years. Every vote I have made, I would still make. Every decision I have made, I would still do. Not saying I haven't learned, but I really feel like that I did what Susan commented about PEG, and I would say the same thing. It was an honest vote. I didn't vote for a friend. I didn't vote for a benefit to anyone. I did it because I thought it was the right thing to do. And so I stand by that. And I just want to thank everybody. And again, to the entire council, it's been a pleasure. The commissioners, we've had our same things, but I truly respect all the time and effort you guys put in. Debbie, we would be absolutely lost if it wasn't for you and Bobby. You guys keep us grounded. So thank you very much to all of you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chad. Really appreciate that. appreciate working with you. Peggy, do you have an 8-page farewell?
I'm not like Chad. I won't talk as long, and I don't have anything written down. But I will tell you, I have enjoyed these 4 years. Debbie can testify. The first time we sat down to do budget, I literally cried. I remember that. And Debbie said, "Do you need a tissue?" And I said, "No, I have plenty." But it was so overwhelming. I don't know that it got any better throughout the years, to be honest with you. I appreciate some of the people I was going to thank have left. Rick, Linda, the people that I was liaison for, I told them in the very beginning, if you need anything, let me know. I didn't feel it was my job to know what they did throughout their day. They know their job, and they do it well. So I appreciate the fact that they did understand if they needed me, okay, come to me, but they stand on their own, and I'm very proud of all of them. I've enjoyed working with everybody. I enjoyed being with Chad on the abatement committee. I admit I was one of those totally against abatements, but I also understand the benefit of them. I wish Corey was here because I'll be honest, before I came into this position, I wasn't sure how I felt about Corey, but I learned to really respect him and like him and enjoyed working with him. So I feel we've accomplished a lot in the 4 years. I didn't always speak out. Sometimes I did and wished I hadn't, but I have enjoyed it, and I'm glad I was able to serve. So thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you, both of you, and you do have a ride ahead of you and a learning curve, but we'll look forward to working with Mike and Shannon as well. So we wish everybody a Merry Christmas and blessed holidays. Be safe with your family and loved ones. Stay healthy because our hospitals are filling up again. So take care of yourselves and your loved ones. We do have, courtesy of the Extension Office, addressed to the council, we have homemade fudge. We have some red velvet cake. We have some red velvet Christmas mini cupcakes. So if you're watching your sugar or watching your weight, they're about 1/4 the size of a full-size GG cupcake, probably 1/4 the calories. So help yourself. There's knives. I think I already cut that. The one thing I didn't do is drinks. So I didn't bring the milk with the cookies or drinks, but I think we have water in the back room. And I think we have a card for our two council people who are leaving. So Happy New Year. But do partake, because I do not want to take it home, but I guess we could share it at the PC meeting that follows at 5 o'clock. And Susan, you're reaching for the mic. You got the cards, or did you already give them? Well, some heartfelt notes in your cards, thank you notes. If there's anything from the audience? Okay, you didn't ask about liaison positions. Shannon has shared, and I shared with the council, he mostly was saying he would be willing to take certain ones of Chad's. And Mike, I'd like hearing from you, and any thoughts on that? Susan, you asked if we were going to do that. We can do it via mail, or we could, I think it should be in place by the time we start.
I think we could try to set them over email and then vote in January. I think that's okay.
Okay, so our next meeting will be on January the 26th at 4 p.m. in here. Presuming there's no other conflict, I guess we didn't ask that, Debbie, if there's any conflict with any other meetings, but I'm not known in the past to have any on the fourth Thursday at 4 p.m. Because we met most of ours at 3:30, so I'm trusting not. We may want to talk about regular work sessions, maybe quarterly, but we can talk about that on our January 26th meeting. So anything else for the good of the cause? Yeah. Bobby.
Sorry, I've been running in and out. I just want to say thank you, Chad. Thank you, Peggy, for serving. It's not easy. on a daily basis. So anybody that puts their name in and serves, I appreciate all of you. So thank you for serving. Thank you, Peggy, for serving.
And you missed some kudos that was mentioned to you when you stepped out. So you just have to listen to the YouTube online because I'm not making it up. There's some kudos to you and the commissioner. So with that, a motion to adjourn?
Hey,
So moved.
1 second, Kenan.
Oh, hold
Do we
on.
need to get that contract anywhere else? Kathy ran it over.
I think I know, probably what you need to do is do, obviously, an additional appropriation. In worst case scenario, when you pass it, they have to refer back as of January 1. At that point, then they have to catch up payments and subsequent payments. I think it's probably at that point, pass it, let's say, on January 10th. If the first paycheck comes out before then you just have to make up the difference.
Okay. So we settled on that?
Thanks, Kathy, for
Yeah.
bringing that over.
Yes, thank you. And we had a motion to adjourn. Second? Second? Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. Adjourned. Signatures. Before you leave, council, we have signatures, I